Good morning, everyone. Today we would be talking about continuous integration. And there's a famous tool for this which is called Jenkins. So we will be talking about what is continuous integration and what are the tools which are associated with CI, and what is Jenkins, and what is a little bit of history of Jenkins. So as we know that continuous integration is the practice in software engineering of merging developer working copies with a shared main line several times a day. What does this mean? This means that in a company there would be multiple people who are working on the same project uh, at the same time, right? So they would be using the same artifacts which are associated with that project. So what happens is when they are working on the same resources or files, so artifacts, I mean to say that any files or any source code which is associated with the project. The source code can be a Java file, it can be a C file, it can be an HTML, an image, or anything which is associated with the project. So people are working at the same time on the same project, and they might be using the same resources or the artifacts. So they might be at the end of the when they are trying to integrate all this into one project, there might be certain discrepancies between their versions, right? So discrepancy. So CI is a practice actually which started with extreme programming concept, where every developer is supposed to run their unit test on whatever the code they have written. Now what happens is the unit tests that they are writing, that those unit tests are run on their own code, but when they try to integrate with another copy of that code, the test might fail. So what happens is people are working on their own copies, and they are running their own test cases. So to avoid this, actually what happens is in companies they have build servers on which their continuous integration tools are running. So what are build servers, and what are the various tools which are associated with it? One of the most popular continuous integration tool is Jenkins. Initially, the Jenkins is also known as Hudson. Actually, this was a proprietary of a team of people who worked in Sun Microsystems, and when Sun Microsystems was taken over by Oracle, so there were some copyright issues, so the team split into two groups, Hudson and Jenkins. And Jenkins but both they are the same tool, so it's just a different name. So your resumes might be having Jenkins or Hudson, but it actually is the same set of tools. So before talking about Jenkins, let's see what are the what is the continuous integration, the whole setup is all about, and what are the various goals. Whenever the continuous build system has, actually there are so many things which are associated with it. First thing, as I have told, there are changes which are on the same project, there are certain set of artifacts related to that project, and a team of people is working on that project. So when they are trying to merge all the changes, there are a lot of discrepancies, and at the end the test cases doesn't run too well. Now, to avoid this, what happens is there are certain build tools which are introduced in last couple of years, which actually reduce the discrepancies between the various versions, so that every version, let's say developer 1 and developer 2, they use the same set of dependencies. So what happens is we will be talking about build tools. So the build tool which have been popular recently, and these would be there in your resumes, would be Ant and Maven. So the whole concept of build tool is to use the same set of dependencies across all the you can say versions of the copies of the projects that are being used in the team, because one project might be using different versions. For example, if we correlate with your Selenium framework, so Selenium might be having certain dependencies like it might be a JUnit project, so there would be JUnit jar, there would be a TestNG jar, there would be a Selenium server jar, right? Java client jars, okay? So maybe some other dependencies also, right? So some person like someone in the team might be using one version, someone in the team might be using other version, because just like that Selenium server, the API, it keeps on changing, it keeps on updating, it's an open source, right? Similarly, TestNG and JUnit also are open source, and the versions of the jars might be different. So to avoid this kind of discrepancy, we put the whole entire package, the whole entire set of files or artifacts related to a particular project into a build file. Build file tells you like what are the various dependencies, so that everyone uses the same set of dependency. How and Maven are different, we will be talking about that in detail as well. Now this is this is what we are trying to do to reduce the integration problem when people are using different dependencies. Apart from this, there is another you can say tool which is required for continuous integration, is the source code control tool. So what is source code, source version control, or source version control tools? In every company, people they do not want the code which you are writing sitting on your desktop. They want the code to be there in the central repository for two reasons. First reason is it should not be local to you. It should be available to everyone in the team. Second thing is they want to maintain the versions of the code that you are writing. So sometimes what happens that when you are making some changes, the previous changes, you can say functionality stops working. So the manager or the team lead might want to revert back to the previous version of the application, right? So they have to maintain the various versions of the applications. So for that purpose, source version control tools are used. Some of the various popular source version control tools are CVS, SVN, Git, and Visual Source Safe. ClearCase. So Visual Source Safe is from Microsoft. CVS, SVN, Git, they are all open source, and ClearCase is from IBM. So there are a couple of others also. We have Perforce. I think Perforce is from Oracle. So mostly in your resumes you will see some of these source control tools. So always remember that no company works without source version tools. They might work without a build tool or a CI tool, but the source control tool is always there. So we will be talking about the certain terminologies which are associated with source version control tools as well as build tools. So starting with source version control tool, so source control tool or a version control system is used to track and provide changes in the file. So as I've mentioned, those files can be any files, like it can be a doc files, it can be a test data files, as you would be using a lot of them. It could be any kind of a script that you would be using, or any kind of an XML or some config files, everything which is related to your project. So everything needs to be put into the central repository. Why this is required? Because again, different versions are to be maintained, and you might have to revert back to certain features. You might, multiple people are working on this same code simultaneously. So you have to maintain the copy of every person who is associated with the project, right? So it's not possible to do it locally, so you have to maintain a central repository for the same reason. And it is companies proprietary, and everyone is given a particular username and password to put their data into central repository. Okay, so when you go to a company, you will be provided your username and password for this. Okay, so how Visual Control version control system works. So you have a repository. It's a server which is maintained by your company. It might be like hosted in anywhere where all the other servers are hosted. So what happens is a person creates a certain file. Let's say I'm working on a Java file. I create a file. Once I'm satisfied, I commit the changes into the repository. So what I'm uploading the file, in other terms, what I'm doing, I'm uploading my file into the repository, saying that I have done the changes, and anybody else who is who once I'm done with the changes, anybody can see those changes. They can check out the code and see the changes. So there are two terms which you will be listing very often. First is checking in the code, and second is checking out the code. Checking in the code is what is analogous to uploading your code into the repository. So whatever the changes you have made, you are checking in the code to the repository. Checking out of the means the code which is already there in the repository, you are taking out that code and you are keeping it, making a local copy of it, right? So these two terms should be very clear. Checking in the code and checking out the code, right? So this diagram actually explains it very well. So let's say Jeff is there are two people who are working on the same code. Let's say Jeff is making the changes on a particular file. He updates the particular file and checks in the code, right? Next day, Dan checks out the code, makes changes, and again checks in the changes. So two people can work on the same copy, and everyone would get the updated version of that, right? So there are certain terms which are associated with source version control, and it would be depending upon what kind of version control system you are using, the terms might be little different, but mainly this is how they are used. The repository is the database which is used to store the file. So it is basically your server, right? So for example, in your latest project, it would be mostly SVN or Git. So SVN, the one of the popular servers for SVN is Visual SVN, and we do have Visual SVN installed on one of our training machines also. So Visual SVN is the server, and only the administrator would have access to that server, because it's the central repository where all the code is being stored. So I can show you the console, or the how it actually looks there. So let me show you. So depending upon what kind of source control system, your admin console for the server would be something like this. So this is the SVN server, and these are the various repositories that I have created. I have created one repository by the name this particular avatar, and there are certain branches, tags, and trunk. What does branches, tags, and trunk means? Trunk is the you can say the main. So in a company, there may not be one project, there might be a multiple projects. Every project will have a different trunk. So this is the main line or the main project, right? For example, I created a couple of projects like sample WPQA and WPQA1, Shutterfly demo, WPQA. So these are the various projects. Each project has a unique URL. So when you go to a company, you would be provided a unique URL to your project, and you will be checking out that project into your local Eclipse. So how we are going to do that, I'm going to demonstrate right now. There's a question, what is trunk? Is trunk a folder? No, trunk is not a folder. You can say it's a term which is used in this version control system to store the main projects which are present in the repository. So right now I have at least 5 to 7 projects in the repository. Each project has its own trunk. That's the main line, or we also called it as the main line, or the the root line, right? So the trunk is the main, and there are different branches. So branches, if you see here, there are not are no more branches here. Why? Because every project has just single copy. You can have multiple when you are saving different versions. Let's say because every project has a, let's say I'm working on a particular application, I'm working on the version 1.1. So that complete version can be put into one branch, and version 1.2 would be another branch. So branch means the various versions of the projects. Okay. Tags are a way to comment. I'm not very sure how tags are used. I have never used it, but mostly I think the tags are used to put some kind of a labels on branches and trunks, but I'm not very sure how they are used. Okay, so when you go to a company, you'll be provided a URL with the main trunk of the project that all you will be working on that on that client assignment, right? So for example, you have let's say you will be working on sample WPQA. So if you see this is the URL. So it starts with an HTTPS in our path, and I have created this particular setting. So this is your project URL. Now you would be provided this, and you have to create a local copy in your Eclipse. So how to create that? So let's check out some of the projects into any of the other machines. So this is Innova Path machine. So let's use this particular machine to some other machine to create the project. So right now we are on a different machine, and it's on the same LAN, so so that we can access the project from the central repository. So what I'm going to do, so let's say there is already a project created there, and I want to create a local working copy of that project. So in the source control system, as I have mentioned, there is a central repository and there is a working copy. So working copy lies on the machine on which you are working, that would be the client. And your server will be there where the main copy or the trunk would be there, right? So you will be all committing your code into the trunk once you are satisfied with the code. So sometimes, this question is also asked, how often do we commit the code? Ideally, the code needs to be committed every day, but generally nobody does that. So they do it every third day or fourth day, or in some companies there might be a day fixed for checking in your code, but it should not be lying for long. So there should not be code lying on your machine without check being committed for a long time, right? So it actually leads a lot of problems. There are certain other terms we would be talking about this. Let's go back and see whether it is, yeah. So we have already certain projects which are already created. So let's try to create our own working copy of those projects. So for this, creating the working copy from SVN, we need certain you can say plugins for Eclipse. First thing is, if you are downloaded the latest plugin, the initial SVN will always be there, but you need to actually add a SVN connector. So SVN connector is a kind of another plugin which is used, which you would be needing to connect to the SVN server, right? So the popular SVN connector is SVN kit, right? And the SVN client which I am using is Subversive. Okay. So there are actually two popular clients, Subversive and Sub-Eclipse. Sub-Eclipse. So there are minute differences between these two. So you can read on the online, which so your company might be using any one of these SVN clients. So I am using Subversive, which actually comes along with the Kepler version of Eclipse, and the connector I am using is SVN kit. So usually all this configuration would already be there on your desktop, but in case you need to know, you might have to ask your manager what client I need to download and add it to my Eclipse. So going back here, I already have SVN kit connected with this. So what I need to do, I need to create the new project from the repository URL which I have been provided. So I will be going here saying new and other. And since I have to take out from SVN repository, so I would be going to repository location. And next, now here I would be typing the URL which is being provided to me. For example, where is my Visual SVN Manager? So let's try to download WBQA project. So the URL for this is WBQA. So you can actually copy the entire thing, and going back to this particular PC. WBQA. Okay, and then you would be provided with the username and password. So I'm just typing my username and password, and you can say finish. Yes, we will be given the URL of the trunk from where we have to download the project. So the connection is not established. Just give me a second. So you can actually to check. You can actually if the SVN is already installed, the client is installed in Eclipse. You can actually go to Windows and show view other, and you can go to SVN. Okay, so you can say SVN repositories. So you will see this SVN repository. And here you need to actually open the check out a certain repository. Just give me a second. So it was saying the connection is being refused by the server, so I'm just restarting it. So service is running again, and let me try to. So sometimes what happens, it's a server, right? It's a machine. It might be down or something. That's the reason it's not able to connect. So let me try to connect again. New repository location. It's okay. It's one and the same thing. So if we expand this, so this connection, this machine is connected with the SVN server. So you can see the various trunks here. So I want to check out WBQA. So what I'll do, I'll right click and say check out. And once I check out, if you see this, the project has been checked out. Actually, it should be one level below. So let me delete this. So the project that the folder which you are checking out, that has to be the root folder of the project. So this is not the root folder of the project. So let me delete it. The root folder of the project you can expand and see. So this is the root folder of the project. So this one we are going to check out in our this thing, our local machine. And now you can see this is the one which is being checked out. That means it has been all the resources which are there on the central repository have been checked out to this particular project. So do you see this? I have already created it's a pre-built project. So there are some page classes, there are some test classes which are there. So do you see these test classes are there, right? And we do have certain resource files. So there is a testng.xml. We will be talking about build files also. So my project is completely there. So you would, when you go to a company, you need to check out this project and create that environment in your workspace. So just like this, you need to create that environment. You will see the entire thing here. Keep in mind, if it's a Maven project, you will be having pom.xml, and you're not supposed to add any of the jar files or any other dependencies on your own. You need to use pom.xml to add any of the dependencies. So let's come to what does a build tool means and how Maven works. So once the project is all set, let's talk about now the build tool. So I hope everyone has a brief idea of the build tools. Build tool are the tools which are used to reduce the discrepancies between the dependencies which are used by various people who are working on the same project. They want you to download or use the same set of dependencies throughout. That's the reason build tools are used. Ant is one of the most popular, has been very popular for quite some time, but now Maven is becoming popular, and if you go for any kind of an interview, you're expected to have an understanding of any kind of a build tool, either Ant or Maven, and Maven is definitely now in more demand. So it's not only a simple build tool, it's basically based on the project object model. So it helps in managing builds, documentation, reporting, dependencies, releases, and lots of other things too. So it has you can add the dependencies. The only difference which I see between Ant and Maven is you have to give the dependency path, and according to that dependency path, it actually uses the dependencies which are stored on that path. The difference between Maven is you have to be connected with the internet if you are using Maven, because Maven downloads the dependencies from the internet and then saves into your local repository. So when you are first installing Maven, you have to be connected and so that it can download all the dependencies and jar files and then build the project. Okay, so this is the one difference which I see between Ant and Maven. You need to install Maven before working on it. So there are certain set of steps which you need to do. You need to download Maven from Maven maven.apache.org, and if you see there is download, and depending upon where you are downloading, let's say you are downloading on a Windows machine, you can there is a binary zip. If you see this, you need to download it and you need to unzip it. Just like that, I have unzipped it in on my machine. I have unzipped here in C apps. If you see, I have Apache Maven. So this is my Maven home. Once I have unzipped it, I have to set up few environment variables. So and put the Maven home path in my path variable as well. So there are 3 different types of settings which I need to do. First, I need to create M2 home, which is the root directory where the Maven is unzipped. Then I have to set the M2 environment variable, which is the bin directory. I have to make sure that Java home is set, and then after this I have to put this Maven build path into the path for Java. So this also I have to do. So this step is missing here, but I need to add this bin path in my path variable also, so that I can run Maven anywhere from my machine. Once the Maven is set, you can go and check, you can start command line and run mvn version. If you see this thing coming up, that means your Maven is correctly installed and can be used. You will see the Maven home, Java version and Java home. So this needs to be all set to work on Maven, right? Once you are done with this, we need to install the Maven plugin for Eclipse. So the plugin is M2 plugin. Again, you have to Google and find out the M2 plugin, M2 plugin for Eclipse. So you can go here and click on download. So you can see this particular URLs. You can copy this URL and go back to your Eclipse, and you can in Windows you can say help, install new software, and here you can type in the path. So once you will see Maven integration for Eclipse, but it is already installed for my machine, so I'm not going to install it. So when you the Maven installation is complete, you can actually check in run configurations, go into run configurations, and scroll it down. You should be able to see here. If you see Maven build, if this is coming there, that means Maven is M2 plugin is properly installed. Okay, so to create a Maven project, what you need to do, so let me just go back to that particular machine on which I was working. Okay, so right now, the first thing we did it was we downloaded the Maven, we downloaded the project, checked out the project from the repository, so everything was already created. So it assumes that you have Maven installed on your local machine. If it is not, you might see some errors over there. Here I have already installed Maven on this machine, so you can actually check here on from command prompt. You can say here again Maven version. So it is already there on the machine. If you will, it's not there, it's gonna give some compilation errors. So you have to figure it out what is the reason behind that, and then you have to set up the environment path and everything. People do take a lot of time in all this settings, so that's the reason we are telling you so that you do not get confused when you go to a company and trying to set up the environment for the same. Okay. So this is something which, I'm saying that you need to do. So let's start creating a new project. Let's say you want to create a new Maven project. How will you do that? So just create new other. And here you can say new Maven project. And right now I am just creating a local project. Click next. Automatically a Maven archetype quick start would be selected. Just select the same thing. And then here you need to add the group ID and the artifact ID. So group ID in a company is generally the reverse domain name of the company. If there is a particular project name or version, it could be there. So for example, let's say I'm writing here say class, and artifact ID is you can say in the same project, in the same application there might be different projects or different versions or different names. So it's just an extension of, so group ID is generally the department or the in a general name, and artifact ID is the specific name of the project. So maybe you can say class demo or something like this, right? So if you see the package is automatically created using the group ID and the artifact ID. And you can also choose to have a different version of this. So if to begin with, you can have just keep the uh, default settings here. And then click on finish. Yes, the company is going to provide you the group ID and artifact ID. Usually the template or the whole framework would already be created. If it's not created, you can always ask what should I put in company group ID and the artifact ID. So this is specific to company to company. So if you see this, there is a project that is being created, and there's a default um, package which is being associated. You can actually see this. You can see this is the package explorer. So wait a second. Okay. Okay, so it actually I use the class. It's a keyword. I shouldn't have used that. So let me just delete this and rename the artifact ID. So maybe I can use this form.xml. So it is giving me error just because I used a class which is a keyword. I shouldn't have used that. Let me just quickly create another one. So you should be able to know why the error is coming. So I was wondering why the error was coming. So it was giving me a red mark under the class. So that's how I figured it out. Okay. So now you can see here. So once you are created this, a default package is being created, and there is a sample Java file is also created. If you want, you can remove this Java file if it's not required. And similarly, there is a sample a test file is also created under the package that has been created. So you can again delete this. So correlating with the your Selenium framework. So here you would be writing your page classes, and here you would be writing your test classes. You might want to add another source folder to keep any other resource files that you would be using. For example, say add a source folder, and you can add, say, the name of the source folder could be, you can write here src test and resources, and you can add any of the source files here. So it can be a test data which can be .csv or .xml or some config files, .properties files. So all those files you can put under this source folder. So now just have a look at the pom.xml that has been created. So if you see their group ID, your artifact ID, the version is already there. The name of the project is class demo, and this is the URL. So this can be sometimes replaced. So you might see a different version of pom.xml for your company. And then we have the dependency as we talked about. So by default, it adds the JUnit 3.81 dependency. You can simply remove this, and you can actually add the other dependencies as you want. For example, let's say I want JUnit 4 dependency or TestNG dependency. So you can go to central repository. So you can look for Maven Central. And here you can search for, say, JUnit. I'm looking for JUnit. So this is the latest version of JUnit, and you can copy the dependency from here and go back to your project and just replace this with that one. Okay. So once you replace it and you save it, automatically you will see the change here. So because it needs to be, as I've told you, it needs to be connected with the internet. So it replaced 3.81 with 4.11. So this is you can say, I would say, the beauty of Maven, where you can the dependencies are automatically downloaded and added to your project without your manual you can say any kind of manual activity, right? So you're not adding right clicking and adding jars to your file. You are just adding them as dependencies, and they are automatically added here. So I will not actually go into details of pom.xml. Probably you can go through my previous recording. So let me just briefly go through something which I've already created. So I created this WBQA project, and if you go through this pom.xml, there are a couple of things which have added here about this. The difference between creating a project without a build tool, without Maven, and with Maven, though I see the difference is, when you create a project without Maven, you have to right click and add the dependencies on your own. So you will be adding the TestNG library or JUnit library or Selenium server standalone jar. So any other dependencies, you have to add it to your project on your own. In Maven, you don't do that. You just add the dependencies in pom.xml, and automatically Maven downloads then and there and add it to your project. Okay?
Yeah, and if it doesn't download automatically, I think we should run as a Maven source, and then everything will be
No, it
downloaded
should
for us.
download. If doesn't download, you have to save the project. When you save, it automatically will download. And you
Okay.
can yes, you have to save the project, and you can right click and say Maven. You can say, where is
Yeah,
it?
run has, I think. Run
Not run
has.
as. No. Um, right. So here, right click and say Maven update project. When you say
Oh, okay.
update project, it's gonna update everything about the project. You can do this also, or what you can do, you can run as Maven and clean install.
Yeah.
Clean is
Mm.
gonna delete the previous builds, like run as clean
Yeah.
is gonna clean the
Clean
previous
previous build.
build, and
Yeah.
install is gonna install if there is any other dependencies which are missing in the project.
And the generate source is there, no? Like that is for like just for the like downloading the jar files.
Generate
Which is
resources is gonna download, install, does both,
yeah.
generate also and install also. Like it will
Oh,
add
okay.
to the project also.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Now
and
I got it.
if you use test, it will do everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only cleans the previous build and re-downloads the all the new versions if you have some version changes in your pom.xml.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shilpi, for clarifying.
Yes. Just like we have SVN plugin for Eclipse, we do have Git plugin also. Developers generally don't, in some companies, they do not use the plugins for checking and checkout. They use the
Okay.
command line tool for check-in and checkout. So if you are going for a interview, you still should know how to use the command line. Maybe a couple of commands like add or commit or update, that should be known to you.
Okay.
Okay.
And you are going to tell, right, at that time, GitHub?
I am not going to tell because it's already there in my previous recording.
Okay.
Git is there. So here I have created this particular project, but I haven't associated it's still in the local copy. I haven't committed it to the repository. So what I can do, I can say a class demo, right click this and go to team. In team, say share project. In share project, where do I want to share? I want to share on this SVN. Okay. So I'm using the same repository, the avatar repository, and say next. And I can use the project name, which is the class demo. Okay. And so this would be my SVN URL, trunk class demo, and I would say next. If you want to put any comment, you can do that and say finish. You can add the comment, so I can write here initial comment. And these are the files which are new. If you see, the content is new because I'm committing for the first time, and you can press OK. So once you do this, this would be added to your trunk. So you can actually see in the SVN repositories now. Just refresh this. So do you see this? Class demos is there in your repository, right? So this means it's there in your SVN server. So it's not only on your machine, it's on the server also. But now if you want to make changes, you can make changes. Once you make change, for example, let's say I'm adding a new file here. Say new class. I'm adding a new class. And say WBQA homepage. So I'm making some changes and I've added this class. So what I'll do is, once I'm done with the changes, I would say again team commit, right? So commit means make the changes which I have done to the main trunk line. So whatever the trunk is there, it would be committed to these changes would be committed to the trunk. So I would add the comment adding WBQA home page. So this is any comment by the developer, and this is the new file. It actually verifies what are the changes in the repository, and it tells you, and you can press OK. So the changes have been committed to the repository. Now let's say tomorrow somebody else has made change. So you want to update your local file with that something which is there in the repository. That is called updating your project. So again, you can right click and say, let's say you can say team and update. When you say team update, that means update my local copy with the last committed version in the repository. Okay. So commit is from local to the repository. Update is from the repository to your local machine. Okay. And you can update to a particular revision, means if there is a particular version of your code, you can update to that version also. And the head version is always the latest commit which is maintained. Okay. So there were actually a couple of other things in Visual source control which I forgot to tell you. First thing is add. Add means putting a file into the repository for the first time. If you see that first thing we said in SVN we don't say add, in SVN we say commit. So that is the first time I'm adding those things into the repository. Then the revisions are the various versions, version 1, 2 and 3. So you can actually revert back to a previous version also. Then head is the latest version in the repository, the one which is last committed. That would be your head revision. So everyone who is checking out, they know what is the version they are checking out. So if they want, they can check the head version. Mostly you will be checking out the head version, or if you want to revert back to a previous version, you can choose that version also. We have already talked about checkout. Checkout means downloading the file from the repository, and checking means uploading a file to the repository if it has been changed. And you can check in, while checking in, you should always describe a short message. You can provide the short message, what the changes that you have made. You can also see the change log or list of the changes that have been made to the file since it was created. So it will change how the file was updated. Let's say you updated a file, then somebody else might be updating a file, and what was the update on that file. That can be logged. That is also logged there. Then you have update or sync. As I have told, update and sync will synchronize your file with the latest from the repository. So let's say you want to just do away with whatever the local file you are having. You just want to update whatever is committed last in the repository. So you will say sync or update. Okay. Then if for some reason you want to throw away the latest, you want to revert back to another previous version, so you can use revert. So these are the certain terms that that are actually global to all the source control versions. Okay. So this is a typical scenario. If you want, you can go through. There are actually, I would just want to mention this one also. There are two types of version control system. Usually, like for last couple of years, this centralized is more popular. In centralized, the concept is you have a central repository, just one repository, and everybody is working on the same and committing to the same main or trunk line. In distributed version, this is actually distributed version is a latest, you can say, updation in version control system. How distributed works is it says that, let's say there are lots of a big team is working on a particular project and all are geographically dispersed, so they can access the a central repository and they can still maintain their own trunk. So every person has its own trunk. So if they want, they can work as a central also, but they can still work in their own trunks also. So for example, like there are some open sources which follows a main trunk, and there are certain sub trunks which people are working on. So you don't have to actually worry about that, but distributed just means that different versions of different trunks can be maintained. So it's a kind of a superset of centralized a control system, version control system. So this is another thing which I wanted to tell. And then Git, I have already taken my previous class, so you can go ahead and just go through that class again. Okay. So now coming to Jenkins. So as we know that we have created the repository, we have committed our project to the repository, we know how to check out from the repository and everything, we know that. And let's try to run a project. So how do we run a Maven project? A lot of times, see here, I have just one test file. You may not have one, you might be having 20 test files in your project. For some reason, you might don't want to run the entire suite, so you can just right click and run this as testng test or JUnit test as you want. If you want to run the entire suite, you can run the testng.xml. If you want to make sure that dependencies and everything is in sync, you can run this as the Maven test. So just right click and say that run as Maven test. Maven test is gonna first build your project, and if there are any missing dependency, it's going to install those dependency also. And Maven clean is going to clear the previous build. So let's do Maven clean here, so that it just cleans up the previous build. And now let's run the test again. Run as Maven test. So okay, so there are some build failures here. It says there is some of the, okay, so when you run your Maven builds, you might see a lot of failures because the plugins are not there, or yeah, so there are certain, okay, this is using JRE7. Okay, let me see. So this can be a major source of failure. The project might have been built using some other previous version and you are using right now some other version. So what you can do is remove this from build path and again update your project. And let's do the Maven install. So when I'm doing the Maven install, it is installing all the dependencies and it is running the test also. So these are the two tests that are running right now. There were two test methods. And you can see the result. Okay, so it says build success and it would also tell you the results. So you can see the test results here. There were 2 runs and 0 failures, right? So your locally your tests are running. Now what happens? When you are running your builds, a lot of companies right now you are just working on Selenium framework, right? And these are only you can say functional tests, right? So there might be certain other tests also. For example, I had given one job help in a company in HP, and they were not only in their project, they were not only Selenium tests, there were unit tests also, there were web service API tests also, there were a couple of other tests also. So all tests were triggered by the same build. So in such a case, like you want to automate the entire application, you want to run the test at a particular time. So here you are manually running the test at a particular time, but let's say you want to run regularly after every commit a person is doing, right? So for this particular reason, people move to continuous integration tools, where you can actually specify at what particular time you can trigger the build. So you are automating the build using continuous integration tools. Okay. So let's see how to configure and how to automate your builds using CI. Okay, so coming to the Jenkins tool. So as I've already mentioned, there are certain parts of this entire system. First is integration. So the integration part is taken care by the source control. So Jenkins picks up the latest copy from the source control, from the main trunk of the project. So your source control has to be integrated with the Jenkins. Then which it needs a compiled executable build file, which can be used to trigger the test cases, right? And those test cases should be built around certain framework or something. So automated test suite should be there. And it also actually helps in archiving the various versions of the builds or the runs that have been made. For example, let's say because in Agile there are the sprint is 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes yeah, it is 2 weeks also. So there might be there are always certain changes that have been made every sprint. So they want to store the results or store the versions or the builds which have been created in previous sprint. So it also helps in archiving. And so that when you run the entire build, if you get a green signal or you get a clean build, that means that code is in deployable state. You can always whatever the stakeholders which are who are associated with the project can see a running a copy of your application, which is a very useful thing, rather than having in certain glitches at the end time when you are trying to release your product, right? So these are the main you can say components which are and features of a continuous build system. Okay, so this is a good picture of actually how the Jenkins work. So Jenkins basically it's a build server. It should be there in your LAN on your in your company, and let's say there are testers and developers who are working on the project, and they are going to commit their changes in the SVN server. So Jenkins job, so we are going to create a Jenkins job which is going to once these people commit their builds, they are going to take that project and run the test cases at that time. Whatever the results of the test runs, it would be distributed to the entire team. So when you these builds are ideally run nightly, so that there is less network traffic. So, and when you come to your desktop the early morning, you can see the feedback and the report, and you can quickly make out if there are any changes you have done previous day. You can quickly figure out what are the what are the reasons why your application is failing or the tests are not passing, right? So this is the advantage of running Jenkins or any kind of a CI tool. So you can, this is immediate detection, no integration step in the life cycle. So it's you already have always have a deployable code in your system, right? So as I have told you, there are three main components of CI. First is the code repository that can be a centralized or a distributed repository. Second is the build system which you are using. So Jenkins is one of them. The others are Bamboo and Cruise Control. These are not that popular. I have no idea how they work, but it is something on the similar lines of Jenkins. And then we need a test framework to run our automation test suites. So JUnit, TestNG, Cucumber. Cucumber is a very popular testing framework to work in the BDD environment, and CCP unit, PY unit. So these are the same family of the testing frameworks. Okay, so we need all these three, and we need to configure our Jenkins with all these three things. The installation, as I told, the Jenkins is branched from Hudson. So Hudson was the original project, and in 2010 there was some conflict, and it was taken like it was split. The team split into two, Jenkins and Hudson. That's the same tool. Jenkins can be it's run in the servlet container, or it can be run as a Windows service, or it can be run as a service also. You need to know certain important things when you are installing Jenkins. First thing is you can go to Jenkins URL to download Jenkins. So you can go to just Google and find out. As I have told, there are two ways you can run Jenkins. First, as a servlet container. For that, you need to download the jenkins.war file. War is web archive, or you can run it as a Windows service. Then you have to install this particular zip file. I have both of them downloaded on my machine, I guess. It's not on my machine. It should be there on this machine. Let me show you. Okay. So I downloaded actually in the morning itself. So do you see this Jenkins.var? I need to have, if I want to run it as a servlet container, which is a recommended way if you want to see your Selenium test running in the browser. If you run the Jenkins as a Windows service, if you install the Jenkins using this particular zip file, there's a setup MSI file inside this zip. If you run this, the test would be there, it would be running, they would be running, but you won't see the browser opening and closing. So just keep in mind that how you want your test to run. Okay. Don't be amazed if you don't see your window opening but you see the test results. So you have to keep in mind this is the reason why the browser is not opening. Because when you run it as a Windows service, it actually hampers with the certain native APIs which are native applications which are installed on the machine. Okay. So I am running this particular Jenkins.war from the command line tool. The simplest way to run this as open the command prompt, go to that particular directory where you have downloaded Jenkins.war. So here I have CD downloads. Okay, and once you go to that particular directory where Jenkins.war is there, so just run java jar Jenkins.war. Once you start this, you will see something running up here, and I have already started my Jenkins. So it's already running up here. You can see this running here. When you do it for the first time, you will see a command like Jenkins up and running, which means that Jenkins is up and running. And to make sure that it is running, you have to go to the HTTP. Let me close this. So you have to go to HTTP. You can say localhost, or you can give the machine name, right? So my machine name is here it is training PC, and the port is 8080. So when you go there, you will see the Jenkins dashboard. This is the Jenkins dashboard. When you see it for the first time, it might not have any jobs here. I already have one job here. Now, before starting working on Jenkins, as I have mentioned, there are certain things which you have to configure, right? So what you need to configure is your source control and your Java and your Maven, right? So going back here, you have to go to manage Jenkins. This is your first step, and go to configure system. Here I have already configured, but if you will configuring for the first time, you have to click on JDK installation, and you can give, if the Java is already installed there, just give a particular name and give the path of the JDK installation. Okay. Similarly, if you are using an Ant build, then you have to add the location of the Ant. Similarly, what you have to do for Maven, Jenkins also install Maven automatically, so you can just click on this and it will install automatically when it runs the job for the first time. So you don't have to actually explicitly install the Maven on server. Okay. And this configuration is different from what you do on the local machine. So remember, I'm working on the build server right now. So Jenkins would be installed on the build server, not on your local machine, right? Then you will not have a Subversion plugin here. So if you want, you can add a Subversion plugin. So there are two plugins which I would recommend that you can install. So you can go back to Jenkins and say manage Jenkins, and go here to manage plugins. There, Jenkins comes with around 400 plugins, so you might be needing couple of them for a specific requirement or for your project. You can click on available, and if you are using Git, so you might be using needing the Git plugin. So you have the GitHub authorization plugin. You have Git client plugin, Git server plugin. So whatever the Git related libraries, you need to add the corresponding plugin. For SVN, I have used the SVN plugin. So I have used there is actually another plugin, Subversion. There was another plugin, Subversion plugin, which I have used. So you can use that one. Another plugin which I want you can use is the TestNG plugin, because we are using the TestNG result set. So it's already installed there. If you see here in my install, because I installed it previously. You can see here Subversion Release Manager plugin and TestNG Results plugin. So these are the two plugins which I have explicitly installed in Jenkins. So let's go back and create a job for ourselves. So to run that particular project, click on New Job, and you can create, since we are using the Maven, you can say build a Maven project and give a name to the job. Say I'm just giving the name to a job, this particular job, and say OK. You will see different configuration. You can give a description. This build gives so you can give any kind of a description there, and you can choose. There are so many actually configurations. You can discard the old builds, so on and so forth. Now this is the important thing, source code management. Here you have to associate your either Git or whatever the source code you are using, you have to associate the project URL here. So I'm using the Subversion, and I need to write the repository URL. How am I going to find the repository URL? Go back to your project. So this is my project which I have been working on, and the name of the project is, let's say, RWPQA, right? So right click on your project and go to the properties, and then you will see SVN info, and here you will see the resource URL. So just copy this resource URL and go back to where Jenkins is running. First time when you'll do this, it will ask for credentials. It might give you some red error in red, and it will ask you for credentials. So that those are the credentials of your repository. Okay, so you have to give your username and password, and that is a one-time setting. Okay, once you are done with this, you can scroll down. There are certain other things which I want to discuss. First thing is, what is the build trigger for that? How you want your builds to be triggered? You want to have, build it periodically. Periodically means you have to provide a certain schedule for it. Let's say you want to run a nightly build, or you want to run it on the Sunday. So you have to use this kind of string to mention where you want to run. For example, they are already giving certain examples like H first. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say 5 numbers which provide certain information. The first stands for minute, then hour, then day of the month, and the day of the week. For example, like if you want to run this, if you say star star star, if you just put star star for everything, that means you want to run it every minute of the day. So you don't want to do that, so don't do that. If you put H, so it's gonna execute each job once a day, but not at the same time. So what all jobs you want to run at what time, you can configure using that. I'm really not good at this, so you have to just read how to build the schedule, how to write the schedule to run the builds. So if you want to run at a particular hour of the day, say let's say you want to run at 9 p.m. every day, so you might have to write something like star 23 star. So you are running at 9 p.m. Every day, right? So let's say 9:10, so you can mention 9:10. And if you want to run, let's say on a particular day of the, let's say I want to run it on 29th of every month, so I can write something like this. So you can actually configure when you want to run the build. So in various companies, this rule varies when they want to run. As I've mentioned, ideally it should run with every commit, but when you run with every commit, there would be lots of commits in a day, so unnecessarily there will be resources that would be consuming. So probably maybe 2 to 3 after every 2 to 3 days, or whatever the rule the company is using. Then there are certain pre-steps also. If you want, let's say, a lot of times you want to do some kind of a configuration first. You want to load certain data into the database. You want to run certain command line tool, or you want to run some script or something. Then you can actually use this pre-step. Okay. Let's say I'm adding certain Windows batch command, or I'm writing just Java version, or let's say I want to find what is my Maven version. Okay, so this is the command I want to run. So you can add any pre-step here. Build is what are the goals you want to test right here. By default, this is test only. If you want to mention test, it's one and the same thing. If the name of your XML file is different from pom.xml and it is not present in root, then only you have to change it. Otherwise, please do not change it. Then what are the post build steps? Again, after your build is run, if you want to do anything else, again you want to run any script. Let's say you want to transfer your result into a certain file, or you want to delete a log file, or any kind of a script you can actually, you want to delete the test data. So there might be certain scripts associated with that. So how you can actually use the post build step to configure those things. And then finally we have this thing. Email notification. So who are the recipients? So this would be people who are in your company with their specific email ID. So you have to configure, somebody would be configuring the emails and everything, and recipient addresses. So all those would be mentioned here. And then we have post build action. What do you want to do? You want to deploy the artifacts to Maven repository, or you want to publish the TestNG results? So I would be definitely publishing the TestNG results. And what is, if the, generally when I'm writing using the TestNG, there is a particular file, result file. If you see here in your test output, Just refresh this. So all the results are here in index.xml. Actually, the results are testng results.xml, which are published there. If this name of the file is something different, if you are saving your testng results in a different file, then you have to mention that in your Jenkins job, that this is the file which is having the result data, right? Once you are done with this, just click on save, right? And let's run this particular build. So remember that right now I'm on a different machine. My test script is there on the SVN repository, and my client machine, which belongs to me as a tester, is a different machine. This is I'm working on the Jenkins server. And if you see this Jenkins server, and I want to show you, you can expand this and see the console output here. It is initially it must have downloaded the entire thing, and I have already run this, so it is not downloading the Maven repositories. If you are running this for the first time, it would be downloading the repositories. And you can see the if you see this, the tests are running here. So we will see the results. Why is it hanging? Where did we click? We clicked on build now. In the project, in the job, there is a command there, build now. So we just click there, and which triggered the build, and this is running, and we are seeing the console output. You can save this output. You can use it plain text, and you can see the results here. It's still running. I don't know why it's hanging. The first test has been passed. For some reason, it's hanging. Anyway, so let it run for some time. It runs pretty fast, although I don't know why it's running. Okay, let me open the dashboard again. Localhost 8080. Okay, so if it's a good build, you will see this sunny thing. With a bad build, there are some errors because I just closed that window. You will see this cloudy thing, that it didn't work well. So you can actually see the results here. If you see, this is the result, and there are two test cases. One of this failed and one of that passed. Do you see this result? You can see this is the test ng report which has been created, and you can see what is the test that has passed, and there is one failure here. This is the failed test that they have mentioned. And okay, so you can actually click here, And see, these are the two tests. One test passed and the test invalid register failed for some reason. So we can run this again and we can see what was the reason behind this. And you can see the console output also if there are any messages that have been printed while running the test. You can see all those messages here. There are test runs. Okay, there are 3 tests actually which ran. The invalid register failed. I think the information you can find out here. Unreachable browser, because I closed the browser, that's the reason it was unreachable browser. You can actually run it again. Let's run it again and see if this time it passes. So go back to the project and say build now. So this is the, if you see, this is the first build that was failed and I'm running the second build. Now, every time, right now I'm manually running this build, but this can be, these are all archived and the results of one build is stored. So you will have couple of green builds also. Green builds means the builds which have passed all the test cases, and you can, that means that code is deployable. Sometimes there might be certain percentage of error which is acceptable to still release the code. So it depends on whether those test cases were critical or not. You can still click the release the code. So the main purpose is to have a build which is okay. This is again there is some issue. This again the build failed for some reason. You can see the configuration. There might be some something which is not configured properly. Okay, so this is actually WBQA demo. We didn't do anything in WBQA. There are no tests and no runs. Let's see what is the configuration. You can check the configuration if there are any issues here. Okay, let me run this again now. And if you want to clear the build, let's say you want to clean the entire thing and do the build again, then there is again a configuration like clear the build, previous build, that also you can do. Now it is running fine. I put actually 2 dashes for the version, that's the reason it was giving the error. So the second one is also running. So it is citing the test and it is producing the results. So you can see the results here. There were 2 test runs and it finishes. Okay, and you can go back and see the TestNG results. Back to the project, and it's a blue build means it runs successfully. And you can see the build number 3, there were 0 failed tests, there were 0 skipped tests, and the total number of tests were 2. And there were no failures, and these are the 2 test cases that ran. It also tells you the duration for which they ran and at what time they started. And you can see the status also that they passed, and these are the names of the test cases. It also tells you what are the page classes. So just remember, if there are 10 page classes with so many test cases, so this page is going to be very long in real world scenarios. Okay, so just giving you a brief overview of what we have learned so far. We need to create a job which where we are going to specify what is the project URL, and then we have to mention if they are using what kind of the build mechanism it is using. The server should have that mechanism installed, whether it is AND or Maven. Okay. Once its configuration is done, then you have to configure the job. Or you can also add the various plugins if you want. These are the 3 plugins, and for Selenium Grid also can be triggered using Jenkins. So there is another plugin which is called Selenium Grid, which can be used. So the same thing, the pom.xml would be the same, only the number of files and all those things would be different, right? So how we do the Selenium Grid setup on one machine, the same thing is being done here. Okay. So I have just going through the configuration again. Add the JDK and the Maven installation and create the build job. You need to create the Maven project. Add the SVN project URL, whatever the project URL you are having. You can schedule the build accordingly, or you can trigger the build for every commit. Then you need to post the build steps in the TestNG. So the job is now configured to run, and you can use build now. You can see the console output and the results. Okay. So these are the couple of questions that have been asked in the interviews regarding CI, like what is CI and what was your role in CI. So you can always say that, I have been I was involved in creating and setting up the jobs in Jenkins and scheduling those jobs on periodic basis. And for that, I did a couple of configurations like what is the project URL and the scripts which needs to be run before the build, the scripts that need to be run after the build. So those you can see. And then how can you create a Jenkins job? The steps that we have recently talked about. Then how would you see results in Jenkins? So you can see we were using the TestNG plugin because we were using TestNG framework. Similarly, if you are using JUnit framework, there is JUnit plugin also. Okay. So there is a JUnit report system, and you have to configure that as a post-build step. What can you do to see your Selenium test running on the server? So for this answer, you have to say that you need to run the Jenkins as a servlet container rather than a Windows service, right? So that should be the answer. Otherwise, if you run it as a Windows service, you will not see the test running, although you can see the results, but not the browser opening up and closing. Okay. This is a question that was being asked. Are there any issues, when you run the Jenkins server? What are the disadvantages of Jenkins? One thing where you can talk about is like the trigger mechanism for running the build has to be judiciously written, because you write the trigger at every commit, there might be couple of commits per day, which actually is not a good practice. If you are running the builds 3 times a day, your server will be choked. If you are running, let's say, 500 to 600 test cases, right? So it's better to run it on a periodic basis, maybe a nightly build or sometime when the network is not too heavy. The second thing is people who are using Chrome driver. If you have noticed that Chrome driver and IE server driver, it leaves a binary running in your task manager. We need to manually shut down those binary. To handle this kind of a situation, there are two things which we can do. We can run the Chrome driver as a service, and so that it doesn't create a separate instance for every test running in Chrome. So that's one thing you can do. Or you can write the code to, you can write the code to run the Chrome driver and shut down the Chrome driver once the test is run. So these are the two things that you can do with this kind of a situation. So this can be added as a disadvantage when you use Jenkins, right? Some people might also say that you need, there is a special time to set up the Jenkins and associate all the things. So that's a little time consuming thing. So that's another disadvantage. So you can talk as long as you want. There are certain requirements which are QA plus build engineers or deployment engineers. So you can have a hands-on, you can install Jenkins on your own local machine and run it as a servlet container. And it's pretty easy. It's not that difficult, but it actually will add couple of more points in your interviews.